Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We are going to give people just another minute or so to jump in, and we'll get started. All right, let's go ahead and kick it off. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're excited to have you, and we're excited to be presenting about our professional services offerings today. I'm joined by the two presenters, Brian May, who's a senior manager of professional services, and Sean Sandoval, who's also a senior manager of education services, and Michael Lutz, who oversees our global professional services department. So to get started, just kind of wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping items. First off, this webinar is being recorded, so it'll be sent out in the coming days, so you can look for that. Additionally, if you have any questions that come up throughout the presentation, please feel free to put those in the Q&A portion of your Zoom window, and we'll get those answered. And without further ado, I will send it over to Brian.
Hey, thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it. So welcome, folks. As Taylor mentioned, I'm a senior manager in professional services, and we're really happy to talk with you today about accelerating your time to value with GitLab Professional Services. I'll provide some context on what the topics we'd like to talk about as it relates to adopting a new tool and consolidating from point solutions, and then Sean and I will both discuss some services that we'd like to bring to light and ensure you know about to help you manage that transition period and really accelerate your time to value with the GitLab platform. So just to kind of set the context, most customers that we talk with are in the process of maturing their DevOps practice. They've probably have worked with many point solutions in the past, best in class tools for things like agile project management, source code management, CI, continuous integration, package management, security scanning, probably lots of different security scanners. And that, that's what we do, right? We find a solution to a specific problem, and that specific problem is solved within that kind of context. But as we do that continuously across all of the different phases of the DevOps lifecycle, it becomes really burdensome to integrate them all and to maintain kind of continuity of workflow when you have so many different solutions. And then furthermore, a lot of our customers, they have different teams or different portfolios in their business using different tools, making management of the overall value stream in the company extremely difficult. So, as we see the proliferation of tools and the number of projects increase, we see the complexity of managing our company's DevOps practice increase linearly, if not exponentially. The number of tools I mentioned is kind of a multiplying factor in the number of projects as you grow from a small to a business of 10 people to 100 people to 1,000 people. You need to take into consideration that total cost of ownership. It's not just the license cost of all those tools. It's not just the maintenance cost in terms of people's salaries to maintain each of those tools. It's the inefficiencies that are introduced to your development workflow and to your ability to ship out ideas to your customers quickly. So it's really the overarching total cost of ownership that we want you to take into consideration, as you're thinking about the longer term investments you're making in your tools and the workflows that are supported by your tools. So enter GitLab, the DevOps platform. It's a single platform with a single user interface and a single data model that supports the entire software development lifecycle. You no longer have one tool for planning and one tool for source code management and one for testing and verification, and then security happening at the very end of the value stream. You have a single platform where all of these functional users come in, the business, the developers, security, IT operations, they're all using the same tool. They're all understanding where the idea or the feature or the bug is in the value stream and collaborating on that single platform. The benefits here are really robust. One of the big themes that I've seen with a lot of customers is they complain about functional silos. If you have multiple tools for or a tool for a specific function, and that person, say a developer, is only using the source code tool, and then 2 months later, a security vulnerability is found in the security tool, there's an impedance mismatch, right? The collaboration doesn't take place organically. It's very difficult to get the developer to go into the security tool, or vice versa, the security professional to come into the source code tool to figure out where the vulnerability was introduced. So we see the functional silos start to melt away with the single platform approach, because there's not that switching of tools and switching of contexts. It's all within the same context, and collaboration happens really organically. So, the platform approach is something we really believe in, and we've built our platform from day one with that philosophy in mind. We think we have a really strong solution to help you improve the way you work and really optimize your value stream to get ideas into production faster. So at this point, I want to take a quick poll, and I think Taylor is going to be sending a poll out in Zoom. So check out the poll feature. What are the biggest challenges that you have in adopting a DevOps platform, right? What are your hesitancies, or what do you think are the headwinds preventing you from moving forward or making this change in the way that you're working? It looks like we're getting some results in here. I think, yeah, there's a Q&A function. It should be on the menu bar, or sorry, a polls function, and it should be on the menu bar, and I think you can answer right from there. Looks like we're getting some more in. Looks like we have a slight leader here, too busy with existing work. We'll keep this up for another minute or two, but that makes sense, right? Your application teams, your developers, all of the people that are contributing to building the value proposition for your customers, they have a day job, right? They don't have the bandwidth or the time, the cycles to do their job and also change the way that they work. That's extremely common from our customer base. The second one that's coming in here, it looks like lack of skill set to manage the transition. Of course, this isn't your main business focus. You don't manage transition of DevOps tools on a day-to-day basis. You do it when the business deems it necessary. So it would be very unlikely that you have a person or a few people with this skill set to manage this kind of transition. So that's really telling, right? A great segue into professional services, and this is really why we exist, right? GitLab Professional Services is here to ensure we provide a means for customers to accelerate their adoption journey with GitLab. We believe strongly in the value proposition of GitLab, and we don't want you to get hung up on the initial deployment or migration or enablement that you might not have accounted for when you were making your investment in the platform. So the remainder of the presentation will really be focusing on the things that we see at other customers and suggestions that we'd make to you all to help you start thinking about what to expect during a transition period. All right, I'm going to move this over here. So, if you're early in your adoption of GitLab or perhaps you're midway through, maybe you've already been using it for a number of years, there's always a consideration of what your transition landscape is. You're already using these point solutions, these tools. You're probably using Jira or Agilecraft or any of these planning tools. You might have Bitbucket or GitHub or Subversion for source code management. And the array of tools continues as you kind of progress from left to right on the value stream. We need to make a decision on which tools we'll be replacing with GitLab and which ones we'll be integrating with, because GitLab does integrate really nicely with most tools within this ecosystem. And this can be daunting, right? You might have dozens of tools that you need to consider, and you need to take into account your business, your goals, the context of when code freezes might be or other things. So it's a really big challenge to figure out what the right transition path is. And professional services can really help with this, right? As we mentioned, as you all noted in the poll, skill set and time to manage a transition is forefront. You don't have the time or the people to do it. And GitLab Professional Services can provide that. The common questions that a customer has early on, how do we make sure that our GitLab deployment is stable and ready for us to use on a production basis? How do we transition from all of those tools that I just showed in the previous slide? And then some people might not know how to use it, right? It's a new tool. It has new concepts and new features that older point solutions don't have. So it's super important to ensure that we have the proper enablement at the right stage of the adoption for the different folks that are using GitLab. And we'll get into that in a slide here in a second, and Sean's gonna be able to help us understand in more detail about that. So with GitLab Professional Services or one of our partners, we can help with these really foundational things, right? Implementation, getting your GitLab deployment set up and configured properly, migrating source code data, migrating CI/CD data, migrating workflows to help you take advantage of these new ways of working, these new collaborative models, and then probably most importantly, training, right? If your folks don't know how to use the new platform, there's going to be disruption further than what the actual change is calling for. You definitely need to take into account what roles need to be enabled at what points in the adoption curve. So Sean, coming from a lifelong career in the education industry, I wanted to throw it over to you and just help us understand, not specific to GitLab, but in general, how does training help accelerate adoption of new technology or new ideas?
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for that introduction. Like I said, training was my first love. It's the heart, I think. So kind of that slide that was right before this that Brian brought up, I really love that. It talked about that expert guidance. And that's what these services and training allow you to do, is you have that access to the experts. Those experts can help you learn. So when you're learning a new skill, they can help you apply what you learned, and that'll help you perform better at your job or at different tasks. And then you will also know when you do need help, when you do get in a tight spot, you will know where to go to get that help. And so as we think about training and we think about product training to help you accelerate your adoption, there's some key things to think about, right? Because this is we're in the technology space. This is a technical product, so there's quite a few changes quite often, right? So there's always new releases, new features, new functionality, and training can help you, and the training experts can help you stay up to date with those. Increasing your speed to efficiency, because you'll know how to use that product. I think one of the things in the poll was about skill set, right? And that lack of skill set. So that lack of skill set can hamper that, right? Like you won't want to get into the product. You won't want to use that product because you don't know how to do it. And so training will help you and increase that, your speed to efficiency. You want to think about the timing, and that's something that we can help you with as well, right? So the timing is crucial. And so make sure, you want to make sure that you're training that team at the right time. And it could be a couple of different things, right? When you're learning something new and meeting that kind of that moment of need is when maybe you want to take training right before you're going to start to use the product. I've often found times too, a really good time is a lot of times we'll let the users kind of get in the product, play in a sandbox, if you will, kind of get oriented with how it works. And then we'll do training, and that helps them bring to the table some different questions, some thoughts, maybe how do I apply this? We do offer instructor-led training, and that's crucial as well, instructor-led and hands-on exercises. That's crucial, especially during the onboarding phases. You'll go through real-world scenarios. And you might want to think about too, when you're thinking about timing, when you're thinking about onboarding, who are the folks that I want to train, right? So you might want to train those champions first, right? They're going to help you get started. Those are the ones that are, they're ready for this change. They're excited about this change. You train those champions first, and those people can help support the larger organization and the larger change that's taking place, and can also help implement, and professional services, of course, can help implement those best practices. And so it's not just what we see internally, but there was a study that was conducted by a large tech services organization, and they found similar results here. So what they found is that users that are well trained or go through training, product training, 68% of them are able to use the product more often. So they're comfortable in the product and they've practiced in the product. And so they feel like they can go to that product more often and get and work in there. 56% can use more features. So they've learned different features throughout the training, so they know how to use those features. I look at the feedback often. And so one of my favorite quotes from a customer was, "I learned all the things I didn't know." And so, right, as you go through training, there might be things that, lots of different features within GitLab or any technical product, right, for you to learn the things that you did not know. So I love that comment, and I think about it quite often. The next one is a whopping 87%. They can work more independently. So they call support less, or they phone a friend less often because they've gone through the training. They know how the product works. And their productivity improves, their satisfaction improves, they're happier, they are more productive, and they're less frustrated. Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So you hinted at trainings happening at different times in the adoption curve. So I'd like to take a second and just highlight the adoption curve and set the foundation here, and make sure everybody's thinking about this. So as change is introduced at any company or even open markets, there's always the concept of innovators and early adopters, and then the majority, and then the people kind of lagging behind. So an example of a laggard is my father. He still uses a flip phone and refuses to join the 21st century with smartphones. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there was the people that bought the iPhone 1, the day it came out, and they were blazing the trail, and they wanted to be known as somebody who is forward thinking and really, maybe even affecting how the iPhone was developed. They were probably providing feedback to Apple early on. So, when you're introducing change at a company, it follows a similar curve. The innovators are the ones who are really intrinsically motivated to change. They see the change as their responsibility. And those are the people to really work with in the beginning, right? If you want to introduce change, you need to find your innovators And you can do that by asking, right? Who wants to volunteer for piloting a new way of working? Your innovators will naturally raise their hands. And it's important to foster the innovators to be kind of market them, right? Once they develop new ways of working, really use them as the golden example for the rest of the organization. The early adopters are they're not on the bleeding edge, but they like to experiment with new technology. They typically learn from the innovators and are influenced by them. So if we can get these two first segments of the adoption curve on board with the change that we're trying to introduce, there's a natural tendency for the early majority and the late majority to hop on board and really build on the momentum that the early adopters and the innovators have established. This is using concepts of human psychology and virality to ensure that change sticks, and it's not just a tops down, you will do this decision, or a bottoms up grassroots movement that doesn't have leadership support. It's really holistic in nature. So as you think about the adoption curve, there's a number of services that we should be considering to help drive the different stages, right? If you think about the initial stage in an investment in a DevOps platform, some of the foundational things are to ensure that you have a stable platform, right? The best way to do that is to move to GitLab.com, because it's managed by our team, and you don't have to worry about infrastructure or updates or patches or anything like that. But if you have a need to deploy a self-managed version of GitLab, making sure that you have a system ready for production usage is really important. We have a service offering called Rapid Results that encapsulates deployment support, kind of helping implement the system, as well as the key trainings that we see to be important at the early stages of a customer's adoption. It includes admin training, so your platform team would know how to administrate the platform, go through the admin panel and troubleshooting steps and things like that, as well as 2 additional trainings, GitLab Basics and GitLab CI/CD. And these trainings are, we'll go through them in a bit more detail later, but it's important to kind of know what types of services to invest during what parts of your adoption curve. And these are the ones that we really see in the beginning are super important. The second column here, now that we've got a system deployed and some of our key platform team members enabled on administrating the system, we want to find those innovators. We want to find the pilot teams to experiment with new ways of working. The services that enable this here, we have some transformation services that we offer that are really strong in helping translate CI/CD workflows and building out standardization and governance around the CI/CD processes in your company. So those are something to consider. Let us bring a framework of CI/CD templates to you so that you can benefit from all of the the previous customers that we worked with, and have this kind of library of CI/CD pipelines that you can select from. There's training in all of these. CI/CD training is usually pretty important here, because the key foundation of an efficient value stream is an efficient CI/CD framework. So we definitely recommend that. As we get past the pilot teams, we're thinking about getting into maybe the early adopters or even the early majority. Before you start to open the platform up or throttle the masses into the new ways of working, we want to make sure that they're enabled, right? They need to have a foundational understanding and a working knowledge of GitLab, the platform. So we have these 4 trainings that I've listed here that Sean's helped me collate. The basics, CI/CD, security, and project managers. These are roughly mapped to the different personas that we see at companies. The basics is kind of foundational and can be for anybody, but the remaining 3 are really kind of geared toward the functions that certain people would do. CI/CD is developers and IT operations. Security essentials, of course, is mapped to security professionals. And then, project manager training is focused on scrum masters and product owners, program managers, things like that.
Yeah, Brian, I would think about too. We talked about before in the earlier slides, like when training is valuable, when should we take training, but we can also help you with who should take training, right? So when and who, and help you along in that learning journey, and think about the different roles, the different personas. I think we might talk about that a little bit more in a couple of slides as well.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Sean. And it looks like there's a question coming in the chat about sharing the links to the services. We can certainly do that. I will try to get to that, or maybe Yolanda could to try to post some of the links while we're going through the rest of the presentation. Thanks for that question. And then finally here, driving adoption to the majority, right? We've gotten the platform in place. We've gotten the admin team trained up. We've gotten hopefully some of the other roles in the organization understanding how to use GitLab. Now we're ready to make that big transition, right? And we can do so. We have some automated migration services that really minimize that transition period once we're ready to switch that on, and get the applications moved over to GitLab. So those are the kind of services that we're thinking about at the different periods of the adoption. And you might be feeling overwhelmed, right? There's a lot of services, there's lots to take in here. If that's the case, we do have a means of kind of engaging with professional services that we don't have to necessarily have that intention defined up front. We call this a consulting block. So if you need help, if like the poll said, if you don't have time to do it yourself, if you don't have the skill set to do it yourself, and maybe you don't have the time to consider what exact service you need, and you just know you need some help, our consulting block approach can help you here. So you can work with your account executive to add professional services consulting blocks to your license purchase, or as a separate purchase after license. We would, after the consulting block purchase order is processed, somebody from our team would meet with you to determine what your biggest initiatives are, and then figure out what we should focus on with the time that you've purchased. And then we can schedule the time in two different ways. We can schedule it as a block of work, where we say, okay, we're going to work full time from 2 weeks from now to 6 weeks from now, and we're going to focus on this thing, and at the end we'll try to deliver these kinds of outcomes. Or we could schedule it as more of a periodic basis, right? Maybe you just want expert advice, right? Access to the experts. So we can do like an 8 hours per week for 12 weeks kind of engagement to provide that guidance continuously in a very expected format. So this gives the customers typically some flexibility and reduces the barrier to entry. If you need help and you don't really know exactly what with yet, this is a great option for you. And then secondly, we do have SKU offerings. So these are packaged services that are very well defined and published on our website. And we try to break them down perhaps by the persona that might be interested in them. So if you're the leader of the platform team that will be responsible for hosting GitLab self-managed, Rapid Results might be for you, right? We help you deploy GitLab self-managed onto one of the popular cloud providers. We provide admin training. We provide 2 additional trainings. It's a high density value package of services that is typically 1 to 3 weeks based on your deployment targets. The second, if you're a VP of development, you're thinking about, what your developers experience is going to be during this transition period. You're probably focused on migrating data, migrating workflows. So the Migration Plus package is should be considered there. Think about, we can migrate up to 1,000 repositories in 2 to 3 week time frame, because we have automation that we can leverage and help minimize that transition period. There's also flexibility in there's 3 private instructor-led trainings that you can select from based on your skill set. Maybe you don't need the basics, maybe you're beyond that and you just need CI/CD and security and things like that. So there's some flexibility there. And then finally, the head of security engineering, you're probably not using a DevOps platform today because we're in this new territory of hosting a DevOps platform. So the security engineers aren't going to be familiar with using a security dashboard within this platform. Helping them understand that using the security essentials training and even the GitLab CI/CD training to understand how the interconnectedness of those 2 features would be really beneficial. So all 4 of these services are available as a SKU today, which really makes the purchasing process very easy and very straightforward.
Yeah, Brian, and I think if you don't mind, I think you've done a kind of just a great job of highlighting what the different personas look like. GitLab is a large product, right? So it would be hard for just one person to learn the entire system. So we really want to, we help you kind of stay focused on who needs to learn and at what time, right? When we talk about that learning journey, what are the personas? That's why we have the different trainings that are included here. So who is getting trained is as important as when you're getting trained.
Yeah, and that's a good segue right into the how we do the training. So Sean, can you help us understand that a bit more?
Yeah, so there's so we do offer a couple of different training delivery methods. We have private instructor-led training. So again, you'll have access to the experts where you can ask questions. And in today's world, we do that remotely, but we can also do it in person. So during these last few years, we've gotten, I think pretty, rather skilled at delivering remotely. And then also, if you do want to go at your own pace, you do have that option as well. So we do have self-paced e-learning training that you can take. And so both of those paths will also allow you to earn your certification. And so why is that important is because it demonstrates your team's proficiency, right? It demonstrates that you and that your team, that you have the knowledge to solve complicated business issues or business problems, right? And also gives you industry recognition. So people will know that, okay, you have that knowledge and you know GitLab because you are industry certified. So thanks, Brian. And there's a couple of different requirements that we have on there and delivery methods. And like I said, we can help you determine what will work best for you.
Super important to understand the training methods. And if there's one thing that you take away from this presentation is that having that enablement for your folks is super key to driving adoption. Without it, it's going to be a struggle. So, that was the majority of what we really wanted to talk about. I've seen a few questions come in through the Q&A. So maybe Taylor, do you want to chime in and maybe verbalize a few of them on our participants' behalf?
For sure. So one question I'm seeing here, as a DevOps technical lead, what are the things I need to learn from the GitLab platform and certifications relevant to DevOps?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, a DevOps technical lead spans the functional roles of a developer, an operations person, and a security professional, and even maybe a quality engineer. So it's probably important for you to earn the DevOps professional certification, which is Sean, you can talk to this, right? It's the four certs?
Right. Yeah, we do have, yeah, thanks, Brian. We do have a specific offering for DevOps professionals, DevOps, what we call DevOps fundamentals. And so that would be, that's your GitLab with Git Basics, your CI/CD, and product management and security essentials. And so these are, right, so the people that you might think about are, your DevOps professionals, your developers, release engineers, your quality assurance team, security specialists, and those product managers as well.
Great.
Yeah.
But before I move on to the next question, there are a couple more. I'm actually going to launch another poll. This one is to gather feedback for today's session. Just a couple of quick questions there. We'd love to hear what you thought about it. Next one, what approaches do you see work best with consolidating from many tools to GitLab?
Yeah, I could probably take a stab at this one. I think it depends on the customer's situation. There's some approaches that are faster to get off of a specific tool. So I'll give you an example. If you have a license renewal for a product that you're not looking to renew, that's 6 months from now, you probably want to prioritize getting off of that tool so you're not paying multiple license fees for two different tools. In that case, we want to make sure that we have a path to get off of that tool in probably 4 months. So we'd really want to facilitate that. If let's say it's Bitbucket or another source code system, I would really position automated source code migration a little bit earlier than maybe I would if that wasn't a customer constraint. So get everybody using GitLab, get them trained on how to use the source code features. And then perhaps we would reconnect back to the CI/CD functions that you're using with, Jenkins or Bamboo or TeamCity, because GitLab plays nice with other products within the ecosystem. So it would be kind of a two-step transition approach, right? Get off of that tool that you're trying to avoid the license costs for, and reconnect, kind of stabilize your business operations. And then in a second step, start to transition off of your CI/CD orchestration tool. And then, the security tools and all of those things kind of can be referenced from the GitLab project at that point. On the converse, if you try to manage change all at the same time, it's going to be difficult. So if you try to get rid of Bitbucket or SVN or name your source code tool and Jenkins and TeamCity and Bamboo and your security tool all at the same time, your team members are going to be overwhelmed with change. So that's why we like to think about adopting change from that adoption curve perspective, so that you manage the risk and you manage the investment kind of in lockstep with each other. So thinking about it from that approach is really the recommendation that I would make.
Great. Next question that came in here. How do you help train or enable the users of GitLab as you manage the transition period?
Yep. So there's a couple of things, right? So you think about when that training applies, right? At what different stage. And so Brian had talked about the different stages of adoption, but also where are you in the different areas of your implementation and your migration. So it's important to think about those things as you're getting trained as well. So like we talked about, that timing could be right as you're onboarding before you're going to start to use the product. That timing could also be depending on the users. Like I said, generally those you think about those champions or those early adopters, those folks that are on your team that are excited to get started. Those are generally the first ones that you want to get trained. And then, I like to say too, I like to give exposure to members of the team, like let them play in a sandbox, let them get familiar with the product, right? And then we have them come into and to do more training. So maybe that's kind of, you think about that sandbox as maybe like a prerequisite, get familiar, play around, make mistakes, ask, think about different questions. How do I apply what this new functionality allows me to my job? right? And so, I like to think about those champions. We start those guys early and in the game, and then, the larger team or the rest of the team, we give them a chance to play a little bit in the sandbox, and then we really kind of ramp up their training. Hope that helps.
Cool. Next question here. How does GitLab PS work with customers? Do you do it all for us, or are we learning along the way?
Yeah, we like to ensure that the services that we provide are beneficial to you. We suggest that you're learning along the way and not us doing it for you. We're not a consulting shop. We're not there to be with you in perpetuity. We want to make sure that we're enabling you to adopt our products and in a very efficient and accelerated way. And then, once you've gotten to that point, we tend to see our team disengage. Our product is well documented, and once you get past the initial transition period, it should be something that you can continue to use without engaged professional services support in perpetuity. But that said, there are cases where we come in and do it for a customer, right? When customers don't have the bandwidth to support the implementation of their GitLab self-managed instance, we have in the past done the deployments for them. The challenge there, though, is once we deploy it, that's great. Your team needs to maintain it in the future. So if you're not involved in the deployment, there is that transition period, the knowledge transfer of how we've done it and how to maintain it so that you can do upgrades in the future. So we've done both models. We like the model where you're sitting with us and learning and kind of doing it alongside. But we totally understand when there's the time crunch or the other constraints that require us to do it on your behalf.
And I might say too, Brian, that the way that we structure the courses is with those hands-on exercises, those labs, those real-world scenarios, right? So that you can learn as GitLab is helping do, and then you can apply so that you can do, but then you also know when you do need help, you know where to go.
Cool. One last question I'm seeing here. Help me understand what you mean by transformational services.
Yeah, so our transformational services are really focused on CI/CD, and a lot of our customers, they've provided us feedback or provided us pain points on their current approach, where it's everybody's solving their CI/CD problem slightly differently. There's no standardization. If they're using like a Jenkins type product, there's plugin sprawl. Different plugin versions are needed by different teams. There's not a centralized governance team responsible for all of this, and they want to get to that approach. So our transformational services are focused on building out a CI/CD pipeline template framework, along with some container templates that actually run the jobs, and it helps customers achieve that. The standardization, the collaboration, and compliance control over their CI/CD pipelines across their business. It's a bit of a different paradigm than like the Jenkins plugin manager. It's all based on immutable containers and an inheritance with CI/CD pipeline referenced in templates versus being defined explicitly in the applications. So I'd love to talk about that more if you're interested. It's a really exciting new concept that a lot of our customers are seeing a ton of benefit in.
Cool. We actually had another question come in here. I'm an engineer and want to learn GitLab, but not sure if my employer will be able to set up these trainings for me. How could I hone my skills with GitLab?
Yep. So there's a couple of resources that you can go to. We do have some tutorials that are available on our website, and then we also do have quite an extensive documentation page too that has a lot of different learning material on there as well.
Great. Well, I'm not seeing any others right now.
Looks like there's one more in the Q&A.
Yeah, I was just gonna say also, Taylor, is what might be a good way. Like I do have those links available. What's a good way for us to share those?
Yeah, great question. So this deck is going to be shared out.
Okay.
So any links that were in this deck, and we can add others if we want to, will be shared to everyone that attended today.
Okay.
So,
Yep, I can add those links. Thanks.
great.
It looks like there's one more question in the Q&A, Taylor.
Yeah, is there any internal GitLab tool or service to migrate from heterogeneous SCM tools, say SVN, GitHub, Bitbucket, to GitLab SCM?
Yeah, so the automation that that our professional services team uses to migrate from our most popular source systems, which are Bitbucket and GitHub primarily, we've actually open cored that that product, that tool. It's called Congregate. I can drop a link in the chat to provide it to you. But it's it's a tool that helps migrate dozens or hundreds of repositories per wave. And our PS team and our network of subcontracting partners are all using this to facilitate these migrations. Customers are welcome to try to use it as well. We've licensed it at the premium level because it takes a bit of understanding on knowing how to set it up to get the benefits, and that learning curve is usually only beneficial for customers who are migrating many hundreds of projects at once. We do have documentation on both our import API as well as our import user interface that customers can use to try it in a, the user interface is it's not automated. It would only be useful for dozens of projects. The import API can be used if you're good at custom scripting. So those are probably your biggest options for a self-service type of migration.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule. Like I mentioned, we'll be sending out the deck and the recording and in the coming days, so you can look for that, and you can also keep an eye out for additional sessions like this in the future as well. And like the slide here says, feel free to get in touch with your account team if you have any additional questions or would like to get more knowledge about setting up an engagement with the PS team here at GitLab. Thanks, everybody.